okay with the invocation there, Commissioner Barr?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't argue Good morning. Would we all please stand for the invocation provided by Commissioner Barr, and then we'll follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good morning. Let us bow in prayer. Gracious Heavenly Father, we say thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for the opportunity to serve and to assist with others in our community. Lord, we lift up this morning a special prayer for the Washington County Board of Education, and for the thousands of teachers, many thousands of students that are back in school starting this morning. We pray for their safety and well-being. Lord, just protect them and those that are responsible. We pray for the school bus drivers and for the awesome responsibilities that they have. Thank you for this day. Lead, guide, and direct us, I pray in thy name. Amen.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to call the Washington County Board of County Commissioners September 4th, 2018 meeting to order. And we're going to be discussing agreement of sale of real property, and didn't know if Mr. Martirana had anything to add before we get started.
Just very quickly, thank you, President Baker. As you may recall, in last week's meeting on August 28th, the Board of County Commissioners formally voted to approve an agreement of sale relating to the sale property known as Cascade Town Center. On Thursday, we were contacted by JGBLI and had some additional issues that they wanted to discuss with us, staff, and several commissioners met with them on Friday morning. And the main issue they provided to us was about the timing of the payment of the deposit. As you may recall, the deposit is 10%, which was $600,000. The agreement that was approved last week by this board, that $600,000 will be paid at the time of the execution of the agreement. The request that we received from ESOC Holdings through JGBLI was that at the time of the signing of the agreement, there would be $200,000 would be paid, and on or before October 1st, the remaining $400,000 of the total $600,000 deposit would be paid. So that is the request that's before you today. If you look at what's in front of you, there's a marked up version of the agreement in paragraph 3 that reflects that the deposit will be paid as follows: $200,000 upon execution of the agreement, an additional $400,000 on or before October 1st. There's also at the bottom of that page, you'll see there's a reference to a letter of authorization, which is the last page of what you have in front of you. We had requested a letter from ESOC Holdings clarifying and confirming that JGBLI was their authorized agent and can authorize and could sign any documents, including this agreement, and any documents relating to the sale of the property. So that's what you'll see, and that's incorporated into the agreement as well. So those are the changes that you see in front of you.
I didn't know. Commissioners have any questions, comments before we get started?
Settlement date remains October 30th. We actually it's still scheduled for this Thursday, I believe, September 6th. Right. So that the date of agreement signing has not changed, and the settlement date remains the same. And actually, we do one more change that I just point out here. It says we put on or before. Obviously, we're shooting for October 30th. For some reason, we can settle earlier than that. If everyone's ready to go, we just wanted to leave open that possibility. But October 30th was the date that we were shooting for.
Okay. I'd like to invite all of the JGBLI group Up. Mr. Murray, you coming up also? You represent JGBLI?
Good morning.
I guess for me, I'd like for you to provide us some background as to why we're here today. And maybe you all could just go over everything that what's present or caused us to be at a meeting here today.
So I believe the purpose of the meeting today is because since the board had approved the previous agreement last Tuesday, that since there was a modification to it regarding the installment of the deposits on the signing on October 1st is with that modification and for us to be the title holder is the purpose for the meeting. To have the updated agreement approved.
I guess for one of my questions would be, why wasn't this discussed last week? Why didn't we go over all of this stuff last week? I thought last week when we were here, when you left, everything was agreed to, and everybody was satisfied.
Yeah, so we had notified ESOC Holdings about the September 6th date, and also for the deposit of the 10% at the signing. And so what they had indicated to us was that even though they would like to have been able to do the full deposit of the $600,000 on the September 6th date, the Korean regulatory procedures just would not be able to have them be able to do that. So they were able to at least be able to bring over the first $200,000 for the signing date, and then the remaining $400,000 for October 1st, which is what they had originally been trying to shoot for the signing.
So they're coming over here to sign?
No, so we'll be signing this Thursday, but representatives from ESOC Holdings will actually be here on Friday.
So you just sign over online and stuff like, I don't know how you sign.
We'll since we'll be representing ESOC, we'll be signing ourselves in person.
And then you're also representing the county? You'll
Excuse
sign for the county?
You will.
If the board approves the agreement,
Right,
you'll
yeah.
be authorized to sign them, yeah, the county as president.
Because you're representing, on this deal, you're representing both the county and ESOC.
As far as the signing, we'll be representing ESOC Holdings. Yes.
The question is that has come up to me and I haven't been able to answer, is if ESOC, if they're going to be here, Dr. Jin will be here on Friday. This agreement, I don't believe John says it is signed on the 6th. Would it be preferred to have Dr. Jin sign the agreement himself on Friday?
Since we've been shooting for the 6th up until this point, that's just kind of the date that we've kind of locked in. So, we're still trying to get the confirmation of the arrival for Dr. Jin on Friday. It may be Friday, it could be Saturday. So that's the other thing that we still need to discuss with them. They're planning to be here on Friday. So I think for us, since we had already discussed the signing date with the county, we just wanted to move forward with it.
Okay. We would also like to, I know the commissioners would like to visit with Dr. Jin, so when you do have his itinerary available, it's now Tuesday, so it's a few days away.
Yes.
We'd like to be able to plan for that. And
Yes.
Appreciate that.
And Dr. Jen, the way it clicked in my little brain was when he was talking about this, he said, the 600,000 he had hoped to be able to move through the regulatory process quickly enough that he could hit the target date that everyone would have liked to have seen. But it was likened almost to if you file your taxes and you're getting a refund and you call the IRS and say, hey, I'm getting a refund and I need it next week for down payment on a car, and they say, well, thank you, I'll transfer you to the helpline. He just couldn't push it through the regulatory process quickly enough. Once it gets through that, pushing the button and the actual transfer is, that only takes a matter of a day or whatever overnight. But actually getting to that point when you have to liquidate investments, that's what takes it through the regulatory process. If you're liquidating $6 million, $600,000 worth of stocks, bonds, investments, the regulatory commission, similar to here, You know, that's a big number, and they look to make sure that there's a bona fide relationship with a party in the United States, that there's a property that's being purchased. They go through the whole process, check, 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 check. It's not so much an approval as it is checking all the boxes to make sure it's not going to a terrorist country or something that's, you know, forbidden investment. And to do that, he said it was just, you know, it just became physically impossible. So he has the $200,000, and he said by the 1st he would have the other $400,000 cleared.
So will that regulatory process be complete by October 1st, and what if it's not?
As far as our understanding regarding the process, all indications does look to be the October 1st. That being said, that's the reason why we signed the agreement, and if it doesn't hit, then the county just gets to keep the deposit.
He actually thought it would be finished the week before, which is why he gave it an extra week's leeway, minimum of a week before, so that by October 1st, the money would be transferred in.
This is all being brokeraged by JGBLI or a real estate group?
Through us, yes, JGBLI.
I thought you all had a real estate company.
We have a property management company.
And then is there a commission?
Say again?
Commission. Do you all have a
No.
commission?
The other question I've been asked, this seems to be the right time to try to clear up any other questions about October 1st you mentioned, but another question was there will be $5,400,000 for transfer October 30, I believe is the date. What can we do to see that this similar occurrence doesn't happen then? What can we help do in advance to promulgate that activity? Is there anything on our side?
If there's any additional assistance that the county can provide, we'll definitely, make it aware to the commissioners in the county. As far as, what we're aware of, everything that ESOC Holdings has submitted, at least to the Korean federal government, has been done. So we're just going through the motions of the actual process to finalize the transaction. That being said, they're more shooting toward the $6 million as opposed to just the $600,000. So that's the reason why it's taking so much time.
And if you look at some of his original letters, he had originally indicated that he thought it would take until October 30 to have the funds transferred because he said he's done this several times, and his original dates were in the October 30 range.
Or October 1st and then
I mean,
December.
I'm talking about the total transfer amount. Yeah, the total $6 million. And in his original letters, he had used dates that were consistent with, the target dates that the county approved of October 30, because he said in his experience it takes that amount of time, and he can certainly have it done by then. And then, of course, the September date for the original 10% was moved up some, and he was trying to accommodate that, but he was only able to get the $200,000 until it cleared the regulatory process for October 1st, with the remainder already on track for October 30.
And commissioners, for your knowledge, and JGBL, because this is a large economic development process, we're going to ask Commerce, and Susan Small is here with our business development, to their knowledge of international transactions to try to help vet some delay or pause like this happening on both the October 1st, which I'm sure you now have completely in control, but the October 30th. So anything we can do, and we may be reaching out to you to ask questions as the experts to see that we can make the rest of the process go as smoothly as possible.
Yes. Thank you.
So you're going to be reaching out to the state?
Yes. State has much more experience than we do regarding international. What's that?
Have we reached out to them at all yet?
They're knowledgeable about all the transactions. However, we're now at a point where we have a great more deal of detail with ESOC Holdings and so forth that they can help us vet through to see that it's a smooth transition. Medco?
That'd be state commerce.
Commerce.
Secretary Gill. And Secretary Gill was actually at a meeting, on site, and Administrator Slocum and a couple commissioners were there also meeting with him. And he was very excited about the project and made completely aware of all the ins and outs of what was going on with the project. So he certainly, I think Commissioner Barr talked to him even since then. He's certainly been on board with the whole project and helping make sure the whole thing moves forward. I think he'll be, like the administrator said, be a very good source of support.
So you all have engaged with international attorneys or anything like that on deals with, you deal with international attorneys or anything?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
have?
So ESOC Holdings obviously has their attorneys as well. They've been looking over the agreements, and aside from the deposit piece, everything else was fine with them. So
Do we have any international attorneys guiding us?
We,
We do not. I think that's why County Administrator Slocum was talking about reaching out to the state if necessary. But the property is here, the agreement is here. JGBLI is actually going to hold title to the property. We'll prepare the deed. It'll be very similar to the deed where we received the property, with some other things rolled in there. So, from a strictly transfer of property perspective, we do that all the time, along with, we have a local attorney here in town who does our title work and stuff for us. So I'm not concerned about that part of it. We can handle that internally. And the funds, you're talking about how the funds are going to transfer and all that. That's something that we may obviously working with you to make sure that all works and it's ready to go on the date, because that's the date that's the date.
Yeah, pushing the button to do the actual transfer is, simple. That doesn't take long at all. Overnight, that money will be here. It was going through the process, the regulatory process. But the way the agreement's written, it also keeps the whole thing state of Maryland.
Right.
And that was one of the things that Secretary Gill was excited about, that, it keeps everything as local transactions within the state. And the state, of course, and county continues to get a piece of all that. Yeah.
And I guess one last question. So how does the deed work?
it's a signee to JGBLI, and
So we're signing the property over?
John could
We
probably answer better.
we will prepare the deed. The deed will be from the Board of County Commissioners to JGBLI. And if you look at when we talked on Friday, that was one of the things I wanted to clarify. And on the letter, the last page from ESOC Holdings clarifies that the property will be in fee simple, which means that we're conveying everything. And it'll be a quitclaim deed, so we convey everything that we have, whatever that is. And that's the kind of deed that, because it's transferred from the Army to Penmore, to COP, back to Penmore, to us. Whatever we have on that property will be conveyed to JGBLI. So
technically, they'll be the owners of the property.
that's correct. And that's one of the things, and when we talked on Friday, that's what we wanted to clarify, because there were, I just wanted to clarify who is actually going to have title to the property, because that's who we'd have to draft the deed to. So ESOC Holdings is actually the company that's entering into this agreement, and they're, I assume, are financing this.
yes.
They're working with JGBLI, and JGBLI is going to hold title to it.
So we'll turn the property over to JGBLI, and then JGBLI is going to be responsible to transfer it to ESOC Holdings.
Well, whatever they do after that,
Develop on behalf of ESOC Holdings.
right.
Okay, any other questions? Any other comments, staff?
If that is the term that JGBLI would own it, there's a legal question, I suppose, should the proposal which said ESOC Holdings will, .11, I believe it was, out of the proposal under the master developer agreement says it's point number 2, I believe, the financial standing of the company. Should that be JGBLI then, or should that be ESOC Holdings?
Well, ESOC Holdings is the one that's purchasing it. We could ask for both if we wanted to ask for, if that's what we wanted to do.
Okay.
ESOC Holdings made the proposal to purchase. The purchase agreement is with them. Who actually owns title to it at the end? It could be some other. Normally with leases or conveyance, companies will create other companies sometimes to just hold title to property and those kind of things. So So sometimes those things change along the way. I wanted to clarify that it was going to be to JGBLI, so that's what's in the letter, and that's what's going to be in the agreement. So, so whatever information that we would like to get from JGBLI and ESOC Holdings, I'm assuming you'd be ready to provide us with any documentation that we would need.
Yeah, so we're fine with that.
Okay.
Okay.
So we could ask for.
Given that the public infrastructure involved, and Greg knows this as well as anyone, there are permits with the water plan, the sewer, all that infrastructure. We want to make sure that those are carried on well into perpetuity for Cascade. So just due diligence in accordance with the master developer agreement. That's all.
The financier for the property purchase, at least, will continue to be ESOC Holdings, as well as the financier for the development.
So I guess for me to fully understand, and I'll have John explain this, they're not going to own anything until we receive the full payment.
That's correct.
correct.
On
Yeah,
Oct-
okay.
on October 30th, there'll be a settlement scheduled, and we'll have the deed there.
Yep.
But the deed won't get conveyed until the money is transferred.
And even to the extreme, if something happened that did not occur, which, of course, we don't anticipate that at all, you would still keep the 600,000. And that would still be the county's money.
All through this whole process, we haven't anticipated any roadblocks or anything, and all we've had is roadblocks. So hopefully this will be
Yep,
nothing
details.
interfering. It'll go as smooth as everyone hopes it's going to go. And okay, any other questions, comments? Thank you for answering all of my questions, concerns.
No problem.
Still don't know where I'm at yet, but we don't have any other questions, comments from the commissioners?
So we had mentioned about, once this agreement takes place, that master development agreement between the county and JGBLI would be dissolved. At what point does that take place? Does that when we sign the contract on September 6th?
I think it was anticipated that would happen on the day of settlement. We talked about that briefly. We haven't talked through all that, but what I was anticipating is that at settlement, as part of that, once the property is conveyed, there'll be an agreement that we'll prepare that'll say the master development agreement is no longer, it's null and void at that point. And I think that will be signed by JGBLI and the county at that time. That's what I was anticipating.
Because I believe I'm correct that that's predicated on the county owning the property. And as long as the county owns the property, which would be the whole way till settlement, then it's still in place.
Right. I think that's right. And yeah, and in theory, it would go away as soon as the county conveys the property, it would go away. But we'll do an actual agreement that we'll prepare that'll say that, so it's clear that as of that date, it'll be null and void, and that relationship will be terminated.
The agreement itself's already been approved. This is just the deposit in 2 phases instead of 1. That's the term that would change.
Yeah, I mean, as the ARF indicates, it's motion to approve the revised terms and conditions of the agreement.
So what's your thoughts, Commissioner Kiefer?
About
Your comment. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
this in general, or my?
No, your comment.
Would you entertain the idea of dissolving the master development agreement on September 30th, or not September 30th, October 30th, regardless of the outcome of sale? The master development agreement, would you entertain the concept of having that be dissolved on October 30th, regardless of whether or not the sale proceeds?
And when the reason would be?
Just wondering.
I mean, if there was a reason to, but
I
we
thought
don't
his
see.
question was, would you entertain the thought of dissolving?
Well, we would obviously dissolve
Pretty
it.
confident, I mean, you've already said that this is a done deal, so I don't know why we wouldn't just go ahead and get that out of the way.
Well, it's. The reason why I'm asking is because as far as if it's settled, then obviously we would dissolve it. But if it doesn't settle, what would be the reason for us to dissolve it regardless?
So no, that's fine.
Yeah.
No.
It was just yes or no.
Master Development Agreement does have a 5-year term in it, that, if it was signed 21 months ago, if that was in 2016, then coming up in the next couple years, if there was not significant process or progress in the absence of a sale, obviously, then the commissioners would have the opportunity to review and potentially dissolve it at that point.
Okay, so any other questions, comments? If none, looking for a motion.
Motion to approve the revised terms and conditions as presented.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion.